So
Yeah.
you're not for abortion?
All right, here's my full opinion on abortion.
Shoot.
Shoot it.
Well, let's go ahead and discuss like what most of these abortions are. And these statistically, you always have the people that say, well, abortion shouldn't be legal, and then you have the people that are like, well, what about people that get raped? And then have less than 1% of abortions are rape victims.
Yeah.
The other 99% are just people who
Don't want a kid.
couldn't figure out how not to get pregnant safely.
Yeah.
So I do not like abortion. I think it's an awful thing.
Well,
I think
you're coming
it's,
from
it's
you.
evil.
You're a father.
And
so
not only that, but
well, I mean, but it's like you.
no. This is. Let me finish.
Okay, I'll let you finish. I'm
So
sorry.
one of the biggest things that drove me to not like abortion, obviously, one, being a father. Two, I saw a picture from a protest one time, and there was a lady standing there with a sign that said, I can do what I want with my body." And next to her was a guy holding a sign up next to hers that said, "If it was your body, you'd be the one dying."
Yeah.
And that's what kind of that, like, you have to think about, like, because it's not your fucking body. When you get an abortion, you're not killing yourself.
No.
You're killing
no.
the human being that's inside you. Now, as much as I do not like abortion, it is not the government's job to regulate shit like that.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's not. It should not be illegal.
No.
It should not be. There should not be any penalties.
No.
Should not be covered by insurance. I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because 99% of these abortions are just from
People.
kids
going
or
out.
people who
Yeah.
are going out one night stands or with whoever they significant other, and they're not using protection or something like that,
They're not
or
making
just it's a
smart
happy
decisions.
accident. Yeah, whatever led up to conceiving that child probably wasn't a smart decision. Now, however you take that, I mean, you could be happy, which is fine, but if you're not happy, I mean, there's no, I don't know how to explain it. There's no excuse. There's no, you can see that child. The child should be your responsibility. That heartbeat starts before before it even looks like a child. Like that life is there. You planted that life.
Yeah.
So just for the on one side, for people to say, well, it's my body, I can do what I want with it. Like, no, it's not your body, because if it was your body, the abortion would kill you. It wouldn't, But then, you got the other people saying, like, well, what about the biggest thing is, like, the rape victims. Like, well, what about the women who get raped and then the rapist impregnates them, and then, their single mom left the child to remind them of that. Two things. One, that's not really happening. There's not a whole lot of rape victims who are getting impregnated by their rapists. It's a very, very, very small percentage. Statistically, look up the statistics. It's very small. Two, I don't think that the best way to cope with the tragedy is to create another tragedy by taking the life of something else. How is dealing with a tragedy by creating another tragedy? How is that a plausible solution? That's my opinion.
So I pretty much totally agree with everything you just said. But I think that there should be special cases where it should be, I guess you could say, funded or by the government to help people who are incest victims, where a dad raped the daughter.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that can cause really issues with that child. That child could be deformed. Your genes are too close with that, and that could affect that kid's life in a really a physical way.
Yeah.
So I feel right there, that's something that's kind of sketchy. But another thing with rape is it's just with the with having kids and stuff through rape, sometimes it's hard. I think that it should be okay with that in very, very specific cases,
And I'm not in a position to be in that type of position, so I guess I can't really.
Yeah, correct. And we don't want to offend anybody like that.
Can't really
If
say
there's
what it's
women
like.
that are listening to this and they have been through a situation like that, we're not saying that you're a liar or that you just need to suck it up or anything. We're not saying that at all. Obviously we're not in your shoes and we could never be in your shoes.
But just from an outside perspective,
Yeah.
just taking the life of a child to.
Taking a life, it's just taking a human life, and I'm not really for taking human lives, so
Okay.
that's my total view on that.
But the final standpoint on whether it should be illegal, no, that's not something that
No.
should be government regulated as far as there are legal penalties to
Well, I feel
doing
But
it.
funding for it, like for insurance to cover that and everything, just to go out and willy nilly, like you can go out and have,
like,
have
Aetna-
a drunk night and get and
Aetna covers 2 abortions a year. Like,
Yeah.
no.
like have sex and that's your backup plan. Like, oh, I'll just get an abortion. It's okay. I don't think that that's right.
Yeah, or even if it's not like that, oh, that's okay situation where you really like accidentally get pregnant. You didn't intend it, and then the next day you're like, oh shit, like I'm pregnant, and then you sit there and think about it, and then okay, the best solution seems like getting an abortion. That you knew it was going to happen
I mean, I
if you
think
don't take those necessary precautions.
everything
You know it's
works
going to
out,
come. I mean,
though.
accidents happen. Surprises. Let's go with surprises. Surprises happen, but you did the deed.
Yeah, and I've
There's
heard
a consequence to every action. Not even like there's a reaction to every action. There.
Butterfly effect.
I've heard 2 stories about abortions from older people, and they did it when they were younger, and they look back on it and they regret it, and it's with them every day. So like if you think you're getting rid of a problem, I feel like that's something that sticks with you.
I feel like you're creating a lot. Like,
Carrying a lot of
Guilt.
yeah.
yeah, that's. I'd rather just go through the hardships of
Yeah,
raising
yeah,
a kid
yeah.
than
I wouldn't want to have
deal with the mental,
Yeah.
Like burden.
repercussions of,
Yeah. Well, I've heard
especially
that
if you have other kids in the future, and then you look and you're like, well,
Yeah.
this is what
Well,
life.
that's
could've-
like the main thing I hear from people. It's like parents that had multiple kids, and they're like, "Well, you would have had another, sibling, but I was forced." Like in some scenarios, it is forced upon the woman
Yeah,
by the male. Definitely,
that's not okay.
No,
Yeah.
like it's not the male's decision to force the woman to get an abortion.
But that's another thing. It's also not.
Sometimes
the,
it
I
is.
don't think it's the.
Huh?
I
You
don't
said
think
that it's not the male forcing it.
no, I said no. It's not
the
okay.
man- It's not okay. It's
Oh,
not
yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
But also, it's also
How could you
not
ask?
okay.
How could you ask a woman?
It's also
to
not
do that?
okay
Right?
for the woman just to make that decision. I don't think.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
The father has,
Yes.
that's the father's
Yes.
creation too. So like, if he's not
Regardless,
okay with
yeah.
that,
If a
like, you
woman goes
gotta
behind a man's back and gets an abortion,
Oh my
kills his
fucking
child,
God.
and he didn't want that,
That would be
it should be. Both parents should be present. Both,
Yeah.
even if they're not together, both
Parents should
conce-
be
conceived
affiliated
parents
with that
should be in that
decision.
room signing the same piece of paper together. The woman should not be able to go behind the man's back and
Yeah,
terminate his child.
Yeah, regardless, it should be a dual
then-
effort.
Yeah, and she's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be with you, so I'm gonna have an abortion behind your back, and then he finds out and he's
Dude,
devastated.
you know how fucked up that would be?
You know how devastating that
Oh
could be
my
to somebody.
God.
Like,
shit.
regardless if he wants to be with her or not, might want that
might want the
child.
kid,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
And
might
it's
be an avid believer, avid,
disbeliever of abortion,
Yeah.
like, against it. But like, regardless, it shouldn't be a one person effort. It should be affiliated with 2 people making that decision, and it shouldn't be one person forcing it upon the other either.
And
Yeah.
that's where the "I'm a woman, it's my body" thing comes into hand. That pisses
people
me
don't
off.
think that their actions affect others, especially
Yeah.
something that serious. Like,
Oh, that's a big jump. That's
That-
a big decision. And it's just like sex is a 50-50 effort, dude. You ain't going to get pregnant by one person,
Yeah.
like just yourself. So it's
and then
like-
there's also the thing that now I know that the link between like abortions and then future pregnancies doesn't really cause like complications during the pregnancy, but there have been studies that do suggest that it could lead to premature birth and
Oh, yeah.
underweight birth.
well, like
So if you get
had
an
a
abortion and then
in
like
the
later in
past-
life you decide to have another child,
yeah.
there's a possibility that abortion could negatively affect
Well, yeah,
the
'cause
pregnancy that you
it's
stick with.
damaging. Like I've heard stories like the females are like, "Yeah, I was bleeding for like 2 weeks," or like it's painful. Like it.
Yeah, I
I
imagine.
mean,
I
it
imagine
fucks
it's not a
up
pretty
your
thing.
reproductive system. I'd say.
But I mean, that's another thing. Even if scientists or studies show that it doesn't cause complications, like, I mean, maybe they weren't looking at the right people. I mean,
Yeah.
anything can happen. That's
I mean, it's an invasive surgery. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've never had an abortion. I'm not female, but I know for a fact that it's not a.
It's not pretty.
It's not a needle in your
Yeah,
arm.
no,
It's not pretty.
no.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a great thing.
Yeah, it's like I don't think they put you under for that shit.
I don't know. I'm not too sure.
I don't think so.
I think like the like not the unprofessional abortions. I
Maybe.
don't think they put you under, but like
home abortions.
I think like the ones you
God.
go in the hospital, they I feel like they would.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But so that's your take on abortion. You're not for taking that human life